Sports Talk Chicago. Here for Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. He's the host of Bears Essentials and Cubs pre- and post-game coverage on the Marquee Sports Network. Please welcome Cole Wright to the program. Cole, it's great to have you on. How are you?
I'm doing well, John. Great to be here once again, man. How you been?
I've been great. Great to see you all over the place on Marquee, Bears Essentials especially, and that was a pretty nice start to the season for the Bears on Sunday, huh?
That it was, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. I didn't see that one coming. Obviously the new turf, the Bermuda grass being put in, and if you had to guess one or the other, which team would be a little faster on that turf, I would have gathered it would have been San Francisco. But with the way that defense looked, and then the offense did just enough to go out there and get W's, we saw Justin Fields almost as if that evolution process really began for us in the second half. I mean, he and the Bears came out and looked like a completely different squad in that second half. And I mean, that's really what you want to see from that team. I mean, with Matt Eberflus, if things don't go right initially, you want to see the ability to adjust. And that's not just with Matt Eberflus. That's with any team that anyone is a big time fan of. If your squad is down, if they're not in a perfect situation, how do they adjust? How do they deal with adversity? And that's what we saw with this Bears team. They dealt with an adverse situation, the rain, not playing up to their expectations. I mean, I'm sure fans out there had a little something to say, and then they came out and made it look like, well, this team been playing together for quite some time. And the way Justin Fields got that ball to Dante Pettis. I'm thinking his hands look so good. He looked like a 5-time Gold Glover, like his pops, Gary Pettis. But and then the one he threaded the needle to ESB at Equanimeous St. Brown. I liked what I saw, and like I said, you know, I work at FanDuel as well as Marquee, and I picked the 49ers to go out there and win 21-14. I thought the under was going to hit, which it did, but I also thought that the Bears weren't going to be able to put up a fight against San Francisco, and they proved me wrong. They did.
How impressed were you with Fields' recovery? I mean, he had a 2.8 passer rating after one half, came back out, and essentially helped win the game in the second half.
I mean, it showed me what he's made of. I mean, last year we didn't really get, a full snapshot or the entire glimpse that we wanted to see from him. I know we got to see him, for the bulk of the season, but it was underneath Matt Nagy. I mean, come on, man. Like, I honestly, is Matt Nagy's offense the offense that you want to see Justin Fields in? And right now it looks as if that second half Matt Eberflus offense is the offense that you want to see him in. And I feel good about his adjustments that he made, like you said. And I feel good about the way he was able, to get after it and to rally the troops. I mean, that shows the mark of a leader as well. And the slip and slide dive at the end, that was pretty sweet as well. Can't deny that one.
I was going to say, it seemed like he was more a leader than a passer throughout the game, and it showed. I mean, they won, and that's all that matters.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to the Pettis touchdown, that essentially was a broken play. Him scrambling around, trying to find that open play. You want him to look more like Russell Wilson did 7 years ago in Seattle, not like on Monday Night Football, and especially not in that post-game press conference with a mint green tuxedo on and a bow tie. You don't want Justin Fields looking like that. No disrespect to Russ and that $245 million over 5 and 165 guaranteed. However, that's not really what you want. But you want him to look more like Russell Wilson than Lamar Jackson at times. There's times you want him to look just like Lamar Jackson, but you'd want him to be more like Russell because he buys time, finds the open play, and then with his ability to scramble, plays break down, guys get open on the other side, boom, that translates to touchdown. So are you going to go up against a team like San Francisco defensively that breaks down like that? Look at the Bears' schedule. They don't play a whole bunch of world beaters. And I didn't have the highest expectations for the Bears entering this season. However, if you can win the games that you're not supposed to win and win the games that you are supposed to win on paper, it might be all right this year, man.
Are they going to be like a fringe playoff team? Do you see them contending for a spot or making it?
I mean, I'm not going to go out on that limb just quite yet, even though I know that you go out on a limb, that's where the juiciest fruit is at. So if you go and get that, it's going to sound good right now. I don't know if I want to say that week 2, because you know what? We're going to have to reconvene after the Green Bay meeting, because I don't think Green Bay is what we saw week 1. And I don't necessarily think that the Bears are what we saw week 1. I think the Bears are closer to what we saw week one than the Packers are, because like we've seen the Packers go down and lay an egg week one before in Tampa and versus the Saints, and we saw everything just flip right back around. So I don't. One thing, I don't put a whole bunch of wagers down. I like to give wagering advice, but one thing I do not do is bet against winners and champions. Aaron Rodgers, he's a winner, he's a champion, and until he shows me otherwise, you gotta tread on thin ice there. So I think it's gonna be a good matchup, Green Bay and Chicago. But I mean, would you bet the house against Aaron Rodgers to lose to the Bears at Lambeau?
Definitely
I wouldn't.
not.
That wouldn't be smart. I mean, it could happen. 100% it could happen. Will it? I don't know.
Cole Wright here on Sports Talk Chicago. Cole, how impressed were you with the defensive effort from the Bears too? A couple of takeaways really helped them out win that game too.
Absolutely, and a lot of people said, "Well, that was a circumstance of the weather being how it was." Well, guess who else played in that? San Francisco. They had to play in that too. Like when people make weather excuses, even if it's from the side that you're on. My daughter played a softball tournament down in Texas, and my mom came back and she was like, "Well, it was 23 degrees with the wind chill, and I can't believe." My mom, stop that. The other team had to play in it too, and we lost. You have to be better. The circumstances, they will arise, and the defense, they took full advantage of what was going on. The elements they play a part as well. It's that was the 12th man. That was essentially their Seattle fan right there getting after it for him. And how would this game play out if it were in Arlington Heights in 3 years with a roof? Maybe a little bit different. The Bears took it full advantage of the elements, and it was coming down sideways. And I knew, later in the second half of the game that it was coming, because at my house, I feel like the weather comes about 15 minutes before, and I was like, oh boy, here it comes. So I messaged my guys who were out in the further suburbs, and I'm like, it's about to get ugly. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. But it got ugly, and then it got pretty with the Bears win. So got to be happy about it.
Are you expecting more of that philosophy defensively moving forward, even with good weather? Emphasis on takeaways and, helping the Bears, in a sense, to reverse field and win more games that way?
Absolutely. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you see Matt Eberflus, his philosophy, go ahead, go get the ball. And I feel like every defensive player should think that way. Are you wanting to stop the play and stop them from picking up ground? Yes, but one thing that you should always do is keep your eyes on that ball and try to get it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Like everyone always talks about Peanut Tillman and the peanut punch. Why doesn't everyone play like that? It's almost like if you flip things over to baseball, when you see how things go, but not a bunch of people, subscribe to that thought process. It's like quick pitching. I have to have a pitch clock now. Guys pitch too slow. Why don't more pitchers pitch fast? A comfortable hitter is a good hitter, and you would think that when you see certain things like that people would clamp down on that and go for that football, just like pitchers you think would pitch a little quicker. That's not necessarily the case, and I think the teams that do go ball hunting, they're the ones that see some success in the long run. And I think that this Bears defense, if they want to make that their calling card, then they'll be all right.
What do you think of Matt Eberflus and Brian Poles at the moment?
So far, so good. I mean, do we have any reason to doubt them? I mean, 1-0. I mean, that's what you try to do. Herm Edwards, hello, you play to win the game. The game. I mean, that's what they did. They went out there, they won the game. You can only play the teams that are in front of you and on your schedule, and that's exactly what they did. They came out with the W.
Cole Wright here on Sports Talk Chicago. Cole, let's shift to some Cubs now. What's your take on their season so far?
It's been a learning process. I mean, that's what I think a lot of people had to wrap themselves around from the very beginning. We've seen some bright spots. We've seen some not so bright spots. But, last night, Javier Assad went out there and absolutely dealt. I mean, the way that this kid has pitched, entering the day, 3 of his 4 starts, he allowed 2 earned runs or fewer. So that's what you want to see, building blocks towards that next great Cubs franchise. Because let's be honest, there's needs. Everyone knows that there's needs. I mean, if you sit there and watch that team, like not only do the fans know that there's needs, not only do we as the broadcasters know that there's needs, but the front office, they know that there's things that needs to be there are things that need to be done in order to be competitive within Major League Baseball. And I don't think that anyone's walking around, not aware of that fact. And I think that that's one thing that they're going to do is, Jed and Carter, they're going to go out there, they're going to scour the market, they're going to try to do things organically within, I mean, as much as it hurts my heart to say, they're going to try to take a St. Louis Cardinals approach. And there's a lot of talented pitching at this Cubs minor league level. I mean, you see every organization on the minor league level, except for the Iowa Cubs, that they're in the postseason. Iowa Cubs, that was probably it was probably an issue because so many guys were getting shuttled back and forth between Des Moines and the big club that it was hard for them to gain their footing. And when they finally did get back, they'd be in a 4-game set and they'd already lost 2. So that was a little bit tougher. But when you take a look at the young pitching and the way that they're trying to build within this organization, and then you add a free agent or two, there's some guys out there who will be available. I mean, Carlos Correa, he can opt out of Minnesota. Jacob deGrom, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. You're going to see him tonight. I mean, the guy lives at 100, 102, throws, crack Tic Tacs at you. I mean, have fun with that. I mean, how good would Jacob deGrom look in another set of pinstripes that also involved royal blue? I mean, the Cubs uniform would look pretty sweet on him. I don't know, Xander Bogaerts. I mean, he's top 5 in Major League Baseball right now in batting average, and he's a guy who he came in with the Red Sox 4th of July weekend. The Cubs, weren't in the playoff race at that point in the season already, and it was sold out. I think Xander, having worked in Boston and realizing if your team is 12 games out at 4th of July as a Red Sox fan, guess what's not going down? A full Fenway Park cheering at full throat. And that's what Xander Bogaerts saw when he came to Wrigley Field. He saw, okay, it is different here. I know it's a slogan, but it is a little bit different here. And there's guys that I work with that are from New York City and from other parts, and they're like, this is crazy. Like to see a ballpark sold out with all that energy when the team isn't being competitive down the stretch, that's huge. And I think that's a huge selling point to a lot of free agents or guys that are done with their contracts that potentially want a new start. And I think take a look at Matt Mervis. I mean, I'm a big Matt Mervis fan. The guy's been down in the farm. He's been absolutely killing. 30-plus home runs, over 100 stakes. This is what you want in a guy. He plays first base. I mean, no disrespect to Frank Schwindel, but, the injuries popped up and he had to go back and forth. And Patrick Wisdom can play first base. He can also play third. But then that brings up the question of who's going to play third next year. What do you do with Nick Madrigal? Where's Nico Horner going to be? And there's just so many questions. Christopher Morel. There's so many guys who are so versatile, and then you add a few nice pieces of the puzzle there, just like that, you're rolling. Because a lot of guys like Hayden Wisniewski, what he showed you, he looks good. Javier Assad, some of the young guys, even Adrian Sampson, he goes out there and chews up innings. Will he be a frontline starter for you in that rotation? I don't think so, but does he have the kind of moxie, the kind of mindset that you want? I mean, the game before the All-Star break against the Mets, he said, you know what? I knew our bullpen was taxed. I knew we had the All-Star break off, give guys a chance to rest. I thought in my head that I need to throw 150 pitches. Those are the kind of guys that I want to get the ball every 5th day. Whether your numbers are there or not, if you have that dog mentality, chances are your numbers will be there eventually.
Are they willing to spend a lot of money this offseason?
They say they are. I mean, I believe those. I mean, they come across the street and they talk to us. I mean, whether it's Carter or it's Jed or it's Tom Ricketts, they say they're going to spend, and I wholeheartedly believe them. I mean, they spent before. You look at 2014 and what it was able to bring in 2015, and then obviously 2016, and then just look at the neighborhood. I mean, people are like, oh, they're not going to spend. They're not going to look at the neighborhood. You think that they just dug into a cereal box and pulled out like, oh, a free remodeling for the whole Wrigleyville neighborhood? Like, no, that's not what happened. Like, it's not just a quick fix overnight too. And it's not like you're seeing all kinds of teams just go, oh, look at them. They go in there and they win back-to-back World Series. That doesn't happen. Even when you spend a ton, back-to-back World Series are elusive. So for people to sit there and always be in a negative mind frame and say, well, this isn't going on. Don't be in that Dallas Cowboys state of mind where you think you can win 3 Super Bowl championships every single year, because there's only one commissioner's trophy and only one team can win the World Series every year. So when people get, all up in arms and they think that, well, this has to be done and it's not that easy to run a Major League sporting franchise, especially Major League Baseball. Lot of games, a lot of players, a lot of teams, big farm system. I think it's if most people were saddled with that task of running a team, most people's squads would probably win about 45 games.
And I'd say I'm pretty impressed with what the Cubs have done so far. This was supposed to be a hundred plus loss team, and I think they've done a pretty good job with what they've had on their roster, considering.
Absolutely. And when you look at the way these guys fight, whether it's a player like PJ Higgins, who can be as versatile as they come, Christopher Morel. I mean, in the National League Rookie of the Year conversation, what he's been able to do has been unbelievable. And he can also play shortstop, third base, center field, wherever you really need him. And I think that's kind of a sign of the times. A lot of guys that have come up, that are younger, they can play more than one position. It's not as specialized. And I don't know if that's, whether or not that's a byproduct of travel ball. I don't think Christopher Morel was a big travel ball guy, but either way, the fact that he can go and play multiple positions, that's kind of what you want. You always want that kind of like that Ben Zobrist guy who can go out there and get, where do you need me? Okay, let's go get this win.
What's the timetable for the Cubs to being a playoff team or even making the World Series again?
I mean, I don't know what the timetable is. I mean, I don't know how they have it up in the fourth floor in the offices. I would guess 3-year window. You would think. I mean, and for me, I'm clearly no one's general manager. I don't run anyone's baseball team, but you see these long monumental deals being handed out to all kinds of different top flight players in baseball. I would never do that. I wouldn't hand out a deal that long. I'd hand out 3-year deals. If you're a premier player, 3-year deal. Boom. We're going to get you paid, but only for 3 years because we want to see what we can do in 3 years. The players that are cut below, you get 2 years. If you want to jump on and ride this bus to a championship, you're going to get a 1-year deal. If you're just one of those auxiliary piece guys. So 3-year deals, 2-year deals, 1-year. It may be a little unconventional, but I mean, do you want to sit there and mortgage the future like Fernando Tatis, who, oh, by the way, he had ringworm, so he had to take that, that whatever that was. And, oh, by the way, you're in a 14-year deal. 14 years. Like, what were you doing 14 years ago, John?
I was in
exactly. Exactly. I mean, you were worried about getting the best cookie in the lunch line that was soft in the middle, and you were worried about getting a rectangle slice of pizza on Fridays. It's a lot can change in 14 years, man, because we're sitting here talking right now.
It's funny, too. I remember back in the 90s, 80s, baseball, it was a lot of 1-year, 2-year, 3-year deals like what you're talking about now. And I mean, a lot of teams repeated back then, too. A lot more teams were more successful for a longer amount of time when they were operating under that standard compared to today.
And you know what? It almost seems like a reversal. It seems like, okay, baseball teams are greedy. And they're like, huh? Like, well, look at they're giving these guys, but they don't want anyone else to have a chance at them. Like, that's the thing. Like, right. Well, if you did right by your player, was my man up in Seattle. Was it Julio Rodriguez? I mean, look at him. They signed him to a huge deal. That's fantastic. Good for him. That's guaranteed money. That's life-changing money for everybody in his family. Chances are he would have, if he would have played and maybe hit the free market, could have got more over a shorter period of time. But these teams that try to lock their young stars up, I don't hate it, but I don't necessarily love it. If you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, 12 years, a 14-year deal, even 10 years. Like, look what they did with Pujols back in the day. And I was of the mindset Albert Pujols should have never left St. Louis because he would have been the best player of all time on the second best baseball team, quote unquote. I hate saying that. It's good. To sit there and call the Cardinals the second, but it's a fact. The only team that has more World Series championships than the Cardinals is the Yankees. So, right. For Albert Pujols to have left for that big contract, and it looked enticing. You say, okay, wow, look at all this extra money, and then he was like, oh wow, but this is California, and look at all those extra taxes. So how much more money did he really get? That's why you have to look at those big deals. They're good. For the young guys who are trying to get that generational money, and who knows? I mean, it kind of wards off injury and all things like that. However, I just think that it's almost the team employing that. Hey, we're the rich kids, and we just want to buy up every single toy at the toy store, so none of the other kids can play with them. And that's almost what it seems like to me. Is that the case? I don't know, but it seems almost greedy to lock up a player for 10 to 14 years.
Padres have done that for years, and it obviously hasn't worked for them either.
Hasn't worked. And it's like everyone's like, "Oh yeah, look at that! Like that's great. Oh, that's fantastic." It's like when they add Juan Soto, who I was on the record saying Juan Soto, he's really good, but people were sitting there trying to call the best player in the game Juan Soto. Dude's was batting 247
Right.
at the time, and that was right around Field of Dreams. And I was sitting there talking with one of my guys, and I have a picture that has Andre Dawson, Lee Smith, Ryan Sandberg, Billy Williams, Dave Concepcion, Tim Raines. I'm forgetting some Barry Larkin. They're all sitting there, and I said to one of my buddies, I said, "Hey, guys, remember that time? It was the end of July and beginning of August, and you were batting 247?" And they all would have been like, "That never happened. 247, and someone's giving a guy the best player in baseball label? Like, let's just stop that. Stop that. I'm tired of the batting average doesn't matter anymore, because you take a look at guys who can absolutely swing it, they're still batting 300 plus, man. And there's guys who are flirting with it. Nico Horner all year long, been right there. There's a bunch of guys who can still hit 300. So batting average does matter. And every time you talk with Hall of Famers, what did they say? What did they try to do every season? They tried to hit 300, and everything else falls into place. You don't try to go out there and hit 40 home runs, because that's what's going to happen. You're going to strike out a whole bunch. And I don't mean to be that old guy in the barbershop, but that's just kind of how it is, man. Like, you have to be able to put the ball in play. You can't just sit there and have hollow at bats with strikeouts. And I don't mind striking out, but when striking out is okay, and it's like, oh, all right, no big deal. I mean, you see certain guys that strike out, it's like they just walk back like it was supposed to happen. Like, I'm supposed to strike out at least once or twice a game. Like, no, man, put the ball in play. Just touch something, please, especially with runners in scoring position.
And I would say about half of players today would not last 30 years ago. Half the players today are hitting under 200. And that would not be tolerated 30 years ago in the 80s. You would be sent down, or you'd be out of baseball entirely.
That's what you would think. I mean, as a kid, I don't remember seeing guys come up and, all right, here comes player A. It's late July, early August, maybe beginning of September. And, oh, look at, he's batting 198. Huh? 198. Like, you got guys that are like on like Richard Simmons programs trying to lose weight just so they can bat their weight. It's like, if you're not batting your weight, man, you should be ashamed of yourself. I feel like there should be an honesty clause. If you can't bat your weight, you need to say, I need to get sent down. It's never going to happen, but it should be a pride thing. If you step on the scale and you weigh 214 pounds and you're batting 211, gotta go out of there.
What do you make of the new rules too? Pitch clocks and ships not being in effect anymore. What do you make of that coming up?
I don't like being able to outlaw the shift. Like our guy Bruce Levine, he said it's fascist. You can't tell people where they can and can't play. I just wish guys would be better hitters. I know it's easier said than done. However, you're a professional hitter. It's what you do. You get paid to put the ball in play. Just a few weeks ago, Willie Harris jumped in. We had batting practice video. Willie jumps in real quick. First three cuts, yak, 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 opposite field, opposite field, opposite field. He hasn't been in the game in forever. I know it's just batting practice, but it's that structured BP that, okay, you get in there, drop down 3 drag bunts, 3 push bumps, 2 suicide squeezes, then you're hitting to the opposite field. Then you're going to hit and run. And then you swing away. There's like I said, there was a structured BP. And I feel like that's one of the things that Major League Baseball has gotten away from all across the board. When you see all kinds of BP, it's a fan display. They want to show the fans how far they can hit the ball in the stands. And I feel like maybe when they're on the field, it's translated a little bit more, because it is a little more in vogue for people to get there earlier. I mean, not to say that we didn't do that back in the day, but now that there's things that are televised, and there's more, they're getting more B-roll for pregame shows. So there is more of a fan feeling, for batting practice. So, but at the end of the day, it should be a small part of practice. It's called batting practice. So practice what you are intending to do. And it sounds crazy, but when I work with my daughter, and her team they're an elite squad. They got second in the country out in Huntington Beach. They're really good. But when I talk with my daughter, I always tell her, I'm like, you don't practice things that you'll never do. Like, she'll be like, oh, let's do. I'm like, you'll never do that. So why would you practice that? You practice things that come up, maybe even in small sample sizes, but don't practice something that you would never do. Like she wants to sometimes go in the batting cage and slap lefty. You're not lefty. You're not a slapper. So, I mean, we can do it when we're done practicing what you want to do or what needs to get done. But it's almost just, it's like that with every team. Like, when it comes to hitting, let's take that narrowed and focused approach, guys. Let's work on hitting the ball the other way. with the man on second. So we can score that run. Just all the little things. And maybe because when I played my coach in junior college, he was all about stealing and stopping, hitting and running. Let's manufacture runs. We got one hit one time and scored 3 runs. So it's just things like that allow you to stay in a ball game, and there's more than one way to win. So
why aren't you in the dugout for the Cubs?
I don't think I have the credentials, but it's funny though. There's guys, we sit around and whether it's different analysts and one of my coordinating producers, he played baseball at Arizona State. We sit there and we watch some of these things and we're like, geez, could we ever? I know you always want to say fantasy wise and looking at teams, but I think that just all across the board too. Well, I don't know if you watched the captain, the Derek Jeter special, but their Gene Michael Stick. When it came to evaluating players, he had there's the 5 tools you want to look at, but he went deeper. There's two other things. I don't know specifically. I don't remember what exactly they were, but mental makeup was one of them. Like, I want to know, what is this guy? Who is he? How does he compete? Like, if he's a closer, I almost think that he had to have been in a fist fight at some point. If you've never been in a fist fight, you're a closer. I don't know. Like, maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it doesn't. But you want a guy that you're going to feel good walking down a dark alley with. So I feel like there's other things that come into play when it comes to that evaluation process. And I mean, everyone thinks they can do it when you're on the outside looking in. But like I said, there's so much that goes into, being at the top of a team's food chain. I mean, Jed and Carter, those guys had their hands full. Like, Jed even joked around. He's like, look how gray my hair is compared to when I started this. I mean, I don't know where I could go from there. My hair's already fallen out. I mean, my beard would fall out and turn gray after that? Like, I don't know. That's a lot of those. I tip my cap to all those guys in Major League Baseball. That is a very stressful job. You're away from home a lot. Being in the dugout and traveling. That's some serious work, man. I don't know if my family would want me gone. Maybe they would. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe did my wife put you up to that question?
Yeah, right.
See if we can get him in the dugout immediately.
Cole, before we finish up today, last question. What's your bold offseason prediction for the Cubs moving forward?
I don't know if it's bold, but I'm going to go on a limb and say they're going to get a big-time shortstop that could play third base, second base. I mean, we want to play the shell game with Nico and Patrick Wisdom or Nick, whoever, and they're going to get a top-flight big arm. I mean, is it Jacob deGrom? Is it Justin Verlander? I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't hate either one of them. I would prefer Justin Verlander, though. I mean, if I know Jacob deGrom stuff is electric, but Verlander's a winner, man. You have to, when you look at guys who are tested and true, it's like you can never discount stuff. If a guy has really good stuff, I mean, that's what it is. But there's also something to be said for a guy who has really good stuff and goes out there and wins it and puts it on the line. And Justin Verlander's a dog, man. Like, if someone wouldn't like to see him in a Cubs uniform, I'd like to have a discussion with them and see why and ask why. Why not? Because this dude, I know he's a little bit older. And what's funny? You were talking about you were in 14 years ago, you were in junior high. I was sitting in our Marquee Sports Network studios the other day when they were playing the Cardinals. And all the PAs and the interns and the kids that are working on, I say kids, that's how I feel old now, but they asked me, they said, "Hey, do you think that that Major League Baseball is giving Albert Pujols juiced balls so he can get to 700?" And I was like, "Huh?" And they're like, "Well, he's 42." And I was like, "Hold on a second, man. Like, what is this all about? I'm 44. I'm like, I can do more push-ups than any one of you guys in this room, and you guys just got out of college." I'm like, 44-year-olds can do stuff. You know what I'm saying? So 42-year-olds can definitely do some things. And Albert Pujols is not getting juice balls. The dude can flat out swing it. That's all there is to it. But I just thought it was funny when the young 20-somethings were like, "Well, he's 42." And I mean, you act like Albert Pujols is out there in a walker. Like, geez, Louise, man. Like, give him some more Prevagen. Like, Albert Pujols, where are you going, Albert? You're on the on-deck circle. No, you're supposed to be at first base. Like, get him some Prevagen. The guy needs to spruce that memory up. But no, I don't know. I think it's funny, but I'm interested to see how next year goes and who they get with some of those big splash deals, because I think they're on the horizon.
Well, Cole, thank you so much for joining me. Always a pleasure to talk. Best wishes with the Cubs and Bear Essentials and Marquee, and looking forward to the next time we chat too.
Absolutely, John. Good stuff, man.